This video is about people who prefer being alone. Have you ever sat in a room full of people, yet felt a pane of quiet glass between you and the world? You're not unhappy. You're just elsewhere. And people misread that immediately. They see the external facts: fewer friends, fewer gatherings, fewer updates. So the world writes a simple story. They must be lonely, awkward, missing out. But that story is shallow. It assumes social quantity equals emotional richness. For some people, the opposite is true. Picture a family dinner. At first, it's normal. Food, small jokes, catching up. Then the shift happens. Someone mentions a new car, a promotion, a new condo. A cousin casually drops a brand name like it's nothing. And suddenly, the conversation isn't conversation anymore. It's a scoreboard. You'll notice the person who prefers being alone right there. They don't compete for airtime. They don't jump in to prove their life is also fine. They just sit there, quiet. Not because they don't notice, but because they notice too clearly. They watch warmth curdle into comparison, curiosity turn into competition. And in their mind, one sentence appears. They have chosen not to play a game whose scoreboard they don't respect. That choice alone already separates them from the crowd. Here's what most people don't understand. Their withdrawal is rarely intellectual first. It's physical. A corporate dinner. The laughter is half a beat too loud. The compliments are slightly too polished. Someone says, "You're such an amazing leader." And you can feel, even the speaker doesn't fully believe it. To most people, it's normal social behavior. To them, it's not neutral. It feels polluting. Not morally, cognitively. Their nervous system reacts first. A tightness in the chest, a deep fatigue, a quiet urge to leave. This isn't arrogance. It's sensitivity to incongruence. So what do they actually do in these moments? Their most powerful move is often not a move at all. Watch them in a group conversation where people subtly compete, interrupting lightly, laughing louder to dominate the mood, turning sharing into showing off. They do something that looks small but is actually surgical. A smile? No comment. That smile is an agreement. And it isn't awkwardness. It's a shield. It means, I see the game you're playing, and I choose not to join. And here's what people miss. By consciously giving up social dominance, they gain something far more valuable: a complete observational vantage point, and an inner peace that remains unbent by rules they never agreed to. This awareness has a cost few people talk about. When your perception sharpens, you start seeing patterns under everything. You see relationships built on alcohol, shared enemies, convenience. You see values shift depending on who's in the room. You see loyalty bend under pressure. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Pretending becomes exhausting. And exhaustion, over time, forces a choice. Either you numb yourself to survive, or you step away to stay sane. So what looks like withdrawal is often the price of clarity. Not everyone chooses solitude. Some people are pushed into it by what they now understand. And for them, a social interaction doesn't end when they leave the room. The real cost gets paid later. They get home. They sit down. And the silence finally arrives. But instead of relief, their mind starts replaying that one sentence, that one smile, that slight shift in tone. What did he really mean by that? Did I look cold? Was that a test? This isn't insecurity. It's their brain doing post-game analysis, because they noticed everything in real time and now it has to process it. The quiet they held in public was not passive. It was constant filtering, holding back corrections, managing expressions, deciding what isn't worth saying. So when they're alone again, it's not loneliness. It's system restoration. And the time it takes to feel normal again, that's the time required to clear the cognitive residue. But here's the twist. This sensitivity, which demands such a high tax, is also the forge of their strength. The very inability to pretend becomes the foundation of an unshakable inner architecture. Society rewards fast adaptation. Smile on cue, agree when needed. People who prefer being alone don't do this easily. They refuse to mirror feelings they don't have. They refuse to nod along just to keep peace. So they get labeled hard to connect with, socially awkward, low EQ. But from the inside, it's different. They're not rejecting people. They are protecting internal coherence. They refuse to fracture themselves just to belong. We often define emotional intelligence as adaptability. They operate on a different hierarchy: truth over smoothness, consistency over likability. What's called low EQ is, for them, ethical restraint. They don't compliment what they don't respect. They don't laugh at jokes they don't find true. At its core, their solitude isn't about people. It's about cognitive hygiene. They guard their attention because they know what you repeatedly tolerate, you slowly become. So they are selective. Empty talk, status, anxiety, performative intimacy, forced closeness, not because they hate connection, but because they respect the long-term cost of exposure. And then you see what they do in private. It looks simple from the outside. Music, gaming, books, films. But to them, these aren't pastimes. These are rituals. Music becomes an emotional force field. A book becomes a high-bandwidth conversation with another mind. A game becomes a controllable narrative where rules are clear and intentions are visible. In solitude, they enter flow, not as an escape from reality, but as a deliberate reconstruction of an inner world that feels ordered, truthful, and breathable. What looks like loneliness is often a private ceremony, finally being able to fully inhabit themselves. And over time, this builds a unique skill set: depth perception. They notice subtle power dynamics, emotional inconsistencies, unspoken motives. They develop focus, formidable focus, because their attention isn't constantly fragmented by social noise. Most crucially, they build a stable inner core. They don't collapse in silence. They don't panic without feedback. Their stability isn't loud. It's unshakable. This is not weakness. This is structural strength. When others seek validation in noise, they find clarity in silence. When others fear being alone, they become powerful in their own company. Now here's something even deeper. They don't crave frequency. They crave compatibility. For them, "I understand you" carries more weight than "I see you." Being seen can mean being registered as a social object, but being understood means your internal operating system is recognized and respected. That's why they don't need a crowd to confirm their existence. They need a few who can confirm their essence. So their social life becomes minimalist, a handful of high-bandwidth connections, and a refusal to drown in low-resolution small talk. Let's redefine it. People who prefer being alone are not antisocial. They are selective, clear, disciplined. What looks like loneliness from the outside is often sovereignty from the inside. Not everyone is meant to belong everywhere. Some are built to see clearly, and clarity requires distance. If this perspective feels familiar to you, type "I see too much" in the comments. You'll know exactly what it means.